Bienvenidos a esta presentación del Preterito. In this presentation, we're going to go over stem-changing irregular preterite verbs. You should be familiar with stem-changing verbs in the present tense. Your teacher may have called them shoe verbs or boot verbs. With stem-changing verbs in the present tense, the stem, which is what's left when you take off the AR, ER, or IR ending, has a spelling change inside of the boot. If you draw a boot around the traditional conjugations, inside the boot is the first person singular, second person singular, third person singular, and third person plural. In this case, jugad, the U changes to a UE. In the preterite, there are two types of stem-changing verbs. The first are O to U verbs. In the present tense, dormir would be duermo with a UE in the new stem, but in the preterite, it is not UE, it is just a U. And what's different about dormir, or other stem-changing verbs in the preterite, is that it isn't a shoe verb. Sometimes teachers call them a sandal verb. And the reason it's a sandal verb is that the bottom two conjugations, the third person plural and the third person singular, the bottom two conjugations are what change, which is why it's a sandal. There are basically only two stem-changing verbs that are O to UE, morir and dormir. The second set of stem-changing verbs in the preterite change from an E to an I. Pedir, to ask for something, is an example of one of these. And again, it's a sandal verb, which means the bottom two conjugations change. And since the E changes to an I, it is pidió and pidieron. Some other E to I stem-changing verbs in the preterite that you may see on worksheets or on quizzes are these. Something to note about these, all of them have something in common, and it is all that they are IR verbs. The last slide had the verbs morir and dormir, and those were also IR verbs. So the rule of thumb is that if it is a stem-changing IR verb in the present tense, it will be a stem-changing verb in the preterite. So that's to say, jugad, which is an AR stem-changing verb in the present tense, does not change in the preterite because it is not an IR verb. Practiquemos. They died. Ellos murieron. Here it's the third person plural, ellos form, so that's why the O changed to a U. We followed. Nosotros seguimos. No stem change. My brother lied. Mi hermano mintió. The E of mentir changes to an I. I dressed myself. Me vestí, no stem change. The boys slept does have a stem change because it's a third person plural form. Los niños durmieron. The waiter served. El camarero sirvió. A stem change here because of the third person singular. Rafaela y Rosa repeated. Rafaela y Rosa repitieron. In this case, repetir has two E's in the stem. Whenever you have two E's in the stem, for example, repetir or preferir, the second E is what changes. Tu preferiste does not have a spelling change in the stem because it is not the third person form. Gracias por ver esta presentación y te deseo mucho éxito.